Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Well, half the happy Sunday because I'm missing my guest for this week. I haven't heard from Grayson yet today, and evidently he's not here. I hope everything's okay, but I know there've been some storms, and I don't know what part of the country he's in right now. So I hope everything's good for him. But he is absent, which alas, because I had a lot of questions I wanted to ask him. I every time I get to hang out with Grayson, I learn something mind blowing. But hopefully he'll either pop in at some point or we can reschedule, whatever the case may be. But I do have backup videos. I always have a backup in case the guest doesn't show up. I have two this time. Joe from Kentucky Atheist wanted me to take a look at one, and then I've got another one that was already saved. So we do have stuff to do and fun stuff we can go through. Well, hopefully it's fun. I haven't actually watched either of them yet, so we'll get to explore together. Real quick, couple of announcements. First, as always, this show will redirect to Bad Science Sunday immediately following. This week's guest is Chris Mallard from the Daily Atheist Morning Show. Yes, Chris is back. He's on my list for the next Skeptic Space video that I'll be doing. I'm probably just going to go through all the creators because the last show was New Year's Eve. It's been a minute. So, yeah. We're probably going to do one of those, and not tonight though because there's over 100 channels. So I'm going to have to prepare for that. But Chris is back at Daily Atheist Morning Show. I'm sure all the links will be in Maya's show, so I'll spare you this time. Also, related to other channels that are back, Uncle Bobby of Gin and Truth, who has been on this very show, has a new channel. It's called Little Chrissy, and that's where he's been hiding the past couple of months. So if you are an enjoyer of Uncle Bobby and his rotten meat sandwich, that's where you can find him, is over at Little Chrissy. There's probably more. I suppose I'll take a minute to plug the fact I was on Michael Beverly earlier today talking about the genetic research that I'm trying to do. Hopefully some of you got to check it out. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Yeah. All right. So first thing is this video that Joe wanted me to look at. It's from this fellow named Lupin's channel. And apparently he was doing an open mic kind of thing, and he was ranting about something before birth. I don't know. We'll find out together. I've got it preset to right before Joe comes in, because the main thing Joe wanted me to look at was how he did. So I don't care about what came before Joe dropped in. So yeah, let's see what's going on with this thing. Well, that settles that, doesn't it? Oh no, he must have found out we were gonna have a look-see at it or something. That's hilarious. It played for like half a second and then it was just gone. And that was only from a few hours ago, so you know. But this is why we have multiple backups. This may not be long enough for the full show. We'll see how it goes. But we'll give it a listen. This is Danny from Still Talk, I want to say. I'm having difficulty remembering places and things and whatnot. But he dropped in on a Kent Hovind stream, and Kent rage kicks him. And so yeah, let's go through and see how this goes down. It's 12 and a half minutes long, so we
There you
Yeah.
are.
Hey, I'm an atheist.
Hey, we can
I'm
fix that. No, we
Oh,
can fix
okay.
it. Okay.
Do you have any good arguments against atheism?
Well, how did the world get here?
Let's say I don't know.
Well, then you're not an atheist.
How does that follow?
You're an agnostic because you don't know.
well no Kent, no. Oh my goodness. I mean, of course Kent has the same script he's had for years. But for fuck's sake, that's not how that works. You're not agnostic doesn't mean you don't know how the universe got here. The atheist thing That's an answer to one question. As we've said many, many times, it's, do you believe in a god or gods? If the answer is no, even if you're not convinced, all of us are agnostic. The believers don't know, and the atheists aren't saying it's definitely not, just that there isn't sufficient reason to believe. But that's not the same question as how did the universe get here?
No, I don't know why there's a world rather than no world, but that doesn't mean that I don't take a position on whether God exists.
But do you know for sure there's no God, or this is something you believe there's no God? I don't think you know everything, do you?
Well, which god are we talking about, right? Because there's a lot of gods on offer, and more importantly, there are some gods we can know for sure don't exist because they're logically contradictory, incoherent. Like Yahweh, for example. Thank you, Andrew. I like the feathers too. I think they're pretty cool. That's a reference to the Michael Beverly stream earlier. There was a fella named John Lovell that I've seen in a few other chats who is not a fan of the feathers. I can't imagine why. Maybe he thinks it's disrespectful to dinosaurs.
Do you?
I don't know everything, but I'm pretty confident that God does not exist.
All right. Do you know maybe half of everything in the world?
If you're talking about all true propositions, no, I don't even not nearly
Okay.
half.
Well, could it be possible that God does exist and the other half you don't know?
Oh my goodness, he's doing the thing. So we've all seen the clip, I'm sure, of the guy who has the killer argument against atheists, and he draws a big circle and he says, this represents all that's known. And then he asks whoever he's engaging with, draw in a part about representing how much you know about all that it's possible to know. And usually the person will be fairly modest and draw in a percent or two. If they're really egotistical, maybe they'll go for 10%. But whatever the case, the fellow presenting takes the marker and he taps the uncolored in part and he says, well, how do you know that God isn't in that part? And it's the dumbest fucking argument because that's not positive proof. But also, how would you know? You can't just say God is in the part you don't know about. But also, that's literally God of the gaps, because as we learn more, that mystery space that you can squeeze God into gets smaller and smaller. And I think believers should be offended by that argument too, because it makes their God more and more minuscule, less powerful, less important. And that's just disrespectful.
Depends on the concept of God. There are incoherent versions. I'm sure you agree. So,
yeah, crazy ones out there.
Right. So it just kind of depends on the concept.
Well, I look at it like this. It's real simple, Danny. We're here. There's two options. Somebody made this place or nobody made it.
No. False dichotomy. My goodness. I mean, of course, it's Kent. So what can we expect? But clearly not the case. It's not a matter of nobody made it or somebody made it, because you're involving personhood in both cases. Natural processes are not the same as just nothing made it, we see it all the time. Who made the snowflakes? Either you're saying someone made it or nobody made it. Well, a person didn't make it, but it didn't come out of nothing. For fuck's sake.
I believe God created the world out of nothing. You believe the world made itself out of nothing.
I don't believe that.
How did the world get here?
I already told you I don't know.
Okay. Well,
Do you have any
think
arguments against atheism?
I think it's
This is a really interesting take. Instead of presenting alternative assertions, backed by evidence or not, Danny is just saying, well, I don't know. How do you know? And I dig it. And I broke the video. We're
illogical to say.
two
If
for
I said,
two.
I don't think anybody made this pencil.
I think that would be weird to say and irrational, perhaps, but I don't think that the pencil and the world are going to be on the same plane.
Oh, I think the world and life is a whole lot more complicated than a pencil. Believe me, okay? A single.
Yeah, that's more than a little bit of a category error and a false analogy. Like, we know pencils are made by people because we can go see people making pencils in a pencil factory. If you want to assert that the world is made by a god because humans make a pencil, A, that's a non sequitur, and B, let's go to the world factory and watch God do it. Oh, we can't do that? Well, then it's not very good evidence, is it? I need faster internet, y'all.
Single cell is more complicated than the space shuttle. So I think if you want to be an atheist, that's your prerogative. But I think
But do you have any arguments against atheism? Because I haven't heard any.
the design of the world, it's too complex.
Why do you think? Oh, go ahead. I can cut you off. Go ahead.
Danny, the DNA molecules, the chromosomes in your body, average person has 100 trillion cells. Each cell contains 46 of those chromosomes, real tightly wound up. The gametes only have 23. They've done studies and said if you unwound the chromosomes and tied it together from one person, that's the code to make you. That DNA strand, just from you, not everybody, just you, would go across the solar system twice. That's the code to make Danny. How did that get coded like that?
Yeah, but you're not.
Evolution. Things complexify when you dump in more energy and, provide sufficient motivation. Like, developing survival advantages, becoming multicellular, for example, is a useful thing because now we can do more with our specialized cells. We can specialize cells. We can have eyeball cells, rods and cones and lenses and things so that we can see what the hell is going on around us. That's a thing a single-celled organism can't do. It's a pretty big survival advantage. So, yeah, there's environmental pressure to continue to change and adapt to survive better. It's not that difficult to understand. This has been explained to Kent a gazillion different times, but really, he accepts that species change over time. He brings up often how dairy cows today produce more milk than they did 100 years ago. Yeah, little changes over a short amount of time eventually lead to very big changes over a long amount of time. It's not hard.
Saying that if I don't know, or if we don't know, therefore God, right? That's not. You want to say that it's complicated. It has, there's certain patterns to DNA that might make you think that it's designed. But you want to point to its complicated nature, right? That in terms of why it's designed.
Well, you asked what evidence, and I'm saying that.
Yeah, it's an argument from incredulity. In fact, I'd say it's an argument from ignorance, because he's saying, I don't understand, therefore God. Well, you're telling on yourself there, Kent. Dr. Kent, I suppose. That never stops being funny. I went to high school with a football player. He was in my pre-calculus class. And a few weeks into the first semester, he got real frustrated because he wasn't understanding, he wasn't following. And finally one day he blew up, he slammed his book down and he stood up and he said, I cannot understand this. This doesn't make sense. This isn't real. All of you are just pretending to understand this to make me feel dumb. He was upset. But to take him at his word in that moment, he was actually asserting, potentially actually believing, that calculus could not work because he didn't understand it. And that's what Kent is doing here. He's saying, I don't get it, therefore it can't be true. All of you are just lying. And it's a pretty wild claim. It's a little egotistical.
The complexity, the complicated part of nature, says it's not possible that it happened by chance.
Okay, so is God's mind complicated?
Is what God.
Oh, that's good. I mean, we've all heard that one used before, too, that if you're going to say complexity requires a designer that is even more complex, so God being even more complex requires an even more complex designer. But the way he phrased that, Kent can't deny that. Is God's mind complex? I love it.
God's time complicated? Was that?
God's mind.
Oh, the mind of the Lord's talked about in the Bible quite a bit. I think it's logical to say if somebody created this world, he would tell us why he did it and tell us what the rules are.
Mm-hmm, but
if a person created this world, but of course, we know that's not what happened. Not just because there's no sufficient reason to believe in a god or gods, but more because we know from geology, from ancient evidence hidden in the rocks themselves, that Earth's atmosphere wasn't always like this. It used to be much more carbon dioxide heavy, kind of similar to Venus, though much lower pressure. It changed because of biological action. Ancient bacteria started pooping out oxygens all over the place, nearly wiped out life until life adapted to utilize the oxygen so it would stop being a poison. And eventually, through gradual steps, the sky turned into the atmosphere we have today, this brilliant cobalt blue on sunny days. That's because of biological action. That's because of life. The world wasn't created that way. So, did Kent's God create a world that wasn't sustainable for human life, even though giving rise to humans is ostensibly the purpose? Because why would he do that? Kent is asserting that the world is perfectly designed for humans, the puddle analogy kind of thing. But we know the world wasn't made in its current form. It was made in a different form. Why would his God do that? It's very curious.
My question is, where do you think God's mind is complicated? That's the question.
It must be way beyond comprehension. If he knows everything you've ever said and thought and done. And Danny, he loves you anyway. But if you don't accept his offer of forgiveness, you're going to get a fair trial.
You see, the way I see it, the way I understand you is...
Yeah, why wouldn't he let people know? If it were a person, why wouldn't he let people know? I mean, we have a book of fairy tales, but we have a lot of books of fairy tales, don't we? We have the Quran, we have the Bhagavad Gita, we have there's ancient Chinese scrolls and things from the religions they had back in the day before Buddhism and Taoism and so on and so forth. Virtually every human culture has developed a religion. They're all different. If there were a creator being with personhood that had the capacity to communicate with humankind, how could that be possible? Why don't every tribe of people all around the world have the same story? It's almost like they had to make it up on their own.
You want to say things like DNA are complicated, so there's likely a designer. But then you think God's mind is way more complicated than anything that you've seen, physically at least. Mm-hmm. But you don't think that God has a designer. So it seems like if by your own principle, you're committed to an infinite regress of creators at worst, or at best.
I think you have to have a creator that's outside of time, space, and matter. We're the ones that...
Being outside of time, space, and matter doesn't remove the requirement of needing a creator because something is complex. Kent's kind of missing the boat on that one.
They're stuck in time, space, matter. I don't think God is. The God that I worship is totally outside of all that. He's not affected by it.
I don't think it really makes sense to say God's outside of time, because then he couldn't change.
Well, God created.
That's true. That's another valid point. If God is outside of time, how does he interact with time? We talked about that yesterday in the Fixing Apologetics stream with Godbot, and it doesn't work. The only thing you can really do is to posit that God, like a programmer, anticipated the need for miracles in his perfect creation. It required occasional direct intervention to correct, and programmed in those miracles before he even hit the run key. Who knows?
Created time, stepped into time, and he controls it. And but this is.
Well, that's another one of the issues. If he's outside of time, but he stepped into time, then he's not unchangeable, is he? He changed. He went from timeless to temporal. But also, that's not even what the Christians believe, because ye old holy book, the very first story, it talks about God existing as a physical being walking around the Garden of Eden and not knowing things like where Adam and Eve were hiding, why they were wearing clothes, who told them they could eat the fruit, and so on. So that's not even doctrinal from Kent's perspective to say it's a timeless being that doesn't exist within reality. Although I do sincerely appreciate the admission that his idea of a God does not exist within space-time. To exist means you must have a location within space-time. He is literally saying his God does not exist. And we can just full stop there and be done with this. But there's more.
The difference is, Danny, I admit mine's a religion and I believe this. You probably will not admit that yours is a religion. Do you think evolution theory should be taught in public schools at taxpayer expense? Should we all be?
They were not talking about evolution though, but yeah, Kent admitting his is a religion, and I guess therefore stupid because that's how he keeps presenting these. It's cool that you admit your religion is stupid, Kent, but what's the goal here? I mean, he bitches about evolution being taught. Do we want to not teach kids? Do we want them to remain ignorant? Well, maybe we do. Maybe that is the goal. But we all know that Kent actually wants his views to be taught instead, even though he admits they're a religion.
Be required to teach what really amounts to atheism.
I'm fine with evolution being taught.
I know. Would it be okay if creation was taught?
In a science class?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it's kind of weird. It's like teaching math in a science class.
Well, I taught math too, but why do you think?
Well, you do have to teach some math in science classes, depending on the science class, but Danny's a philosophy guy, so I'll give him a pass on this one.
Evolution is part of science. Where's the evidence?
Go ahead. I cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, when has anybody ever seen any animal change to something else, or even start to change to something else?
When has anybody seen God create kinds?
I admit.
Oh, I dig that one. That was my own response. The first time Mark and I reviewed Kent over a year ago is when has anybody ever seen a creature poof into being out of nothing? We've never seen creation happen either. But also, we have observed evolution. I've mentioned numerous times, one of my favorite references is the experiment where we took algae, single-celled organisms, and exposed them to a predator. And in 3 out of the 5 experiments, they evolved multicellularity. They completely changed kinds, if you like, in response to that environmental pressure. And it was 3 out of 5, and all 3 did it in a different way because natural selection works on random mutation. It's pretty cool. And that's just one of a gazillion examples of evolution we have observed. On a more macro scale, as mentioned earlier, Kent talked about how cows today produce more milk than they did 100 years ago. That's true. That's true for a whole bunch of things. Corn today produces more. He would argue these are variations within a kind, but they do represent a change in the allele frequencies in a population, which is what evolution is. That's it. That's the whole thing. It's a change in the allele frequencies in a population over time. When you acknowledge that that's happening, then you acknowledge evolution. As Forrest Velkai likes to put it, if you admit that you can walk from your door to the mailbox, you can't deny that you can walk from your mailbox to the end of the street because you do it in the exact same way, one step at a time. It's just a matter of distance. That's it. Fern says, when has anyone ever seen a male made out of dust? When has anyone ever seen a woman made from a rib? Answer, in my puppet show. Fern has a puppet show. That's interesting. I want a video of this puppet show because it sounds fucking lit. That's what we say these days, right?
Mine's a religion. Why don't you admit evolution's a religion?
It doesn't follow that you've never seen a particular phenomenon, therefore it's a religion.
It's something you have to believe in. This chart that they want.
Is that how you're defining religion? Then everything's a religion in terms of.
Well, it's not part of.
That's true. If you're going to say accepting a thing that can be demonstrated and you can investigate for yourself as a fact is a religion, then Kent's religion isn't a religion. And also everything we believe in is a religion. Like everything. The fact I'm talking to a camera right now, but I believe that there are people watching and I'm given evidence of that fact. Comments show up from time to time. So maybe it's a religion. I guess I'm worshiping you all or something. Because I believe.
Part of science. That's where we need to carefully keep science pure. Science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. We can observe a lot of things.
No, I wouldn't really. I think science is a little bit more complicated than that. Because there's certain things about there's something called natural history. We can't always verify natural historical facts like we can, like whether what what the products are to certain reactants in the chemistry set.
Well, the definition of science, if you want to Google it, is knowledge gained from using observations and experiments.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit.
That doesn't seem right to me. Let's Google it, shall we? Let's look this up. Definition of science. 1. The systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation, experimentation, and testing of theories against the evidence obtained. So Kent wasn't completely off his rocker there, but he did miss a couple important points, like testing and evidence, but details.
Bit of an untechnical definition.
Okay. What is science? Easybiologyclass.com. The word comes from knowledge. Seer, what do we know?
So you're asking me what science is? Is that what you're asking me? How I?
Well, knowledge. Science is what we know and things we can observe and study and test. That's a
What? No. Science is a mechanism for generating answers. It's a pretty reliable mechanism. It does get things wrong from time to time, because correcting what was previously wrong is sort of the fucking point. But it's not what we know or even how we know. It's the mechanism for generating answers to questions. In a way, it's kind of mind dependent, because you have to ask the question first. Somebody has to think of a question and then look into it. Find a way to determine whether the thing that they're asking might be true or false or something else. In Soviet Russia, keyboard types U. Okay, I kind of went with the Count from Sesame Street there, but you know. I can barely speak in my own voice, let alone accents.
Standard definition of science in many, many books.
Again, that might be a colloquial definition, but I think science, if we're going to be technical about this, maybe we need to be more careful, because like there are going to be things that, you could observe, study, and, like you can, if let's say you're right, let's say Jesus is God, right? The disciples, observed Jesus, right? The Pharisees tested him, is now studying God, there now science. Is that what you want to say?
Well, he showed.
Now it's breaking midstream. Come on now. Come on. What is up? My internet says it's got full capacity, and it's moving at 20 megabits a second. So I don't think this particular issue's on my end, but you never know. You never know.
Certainly plenty of evidence: raising the dead, walking on water, making 5 little boy sack lunch, feed 20,000 people. I think that's pretty good evidence he's not just a normal human.
I think what I'm pointing out is that I'm fine to use that sense of science. I'm just saying it's a little broad, right? It's too broad, I think.
Well, it comes the Latin word seer, to know. What do we know? We know cows produce cows. That we know. We see it all the time. We do not know that cows are related to mosquitoes. This chart.
We do, though. I mean, Kent said it himself earlier. All living things have DNA. Do you think that's an accident, Kent?
Has cows related to mosquitoes.
By related, you mean what?
They came from a common ancestor. Nobody's ever seen any of these steps.
Okay. Do you think a cow is related to a mosquito via common design?
I think the same guy designed them. Sure.
So they're related.
No.
Oh. Yeah, that's a good one. And yeah, fair point. If God created cows and God created humans, then from the ancestry through spirituality, whatever the fuck magic we're talking about here, yeah, they're still related. Sort of like how Kent often says, if you look at the code behind Microsoft Word and the code behind Microsoft Excel, you're going to see a lot of repeated lines of code because they have the same designer. They are related. They're made by the same company. They're in the same family of products. It's the Microsoft Office suite. It literally comes in a bundle because they're related.
Either way, they're related, right?
Oh, well, they have a common designer. Do you think that should be taught in
so
science
do
class?
you think you're related to a banana?
No.
Yeah, you're just common designer. You're related to a banana.
Well, I think God made everything so that we have a relationship so that I can eat the banana, and the same molecules in there can be absorbed into my body and used for things that I need.
Oh, Kent accidentally makes a really good point. The fact that we have biocompatibility with other living things on this earth. Not everything, obviously. Some things are poison to us. But even they share the same kinds of commonalities that our food does, like proteins that we can digest and use. Every organism on Earth uses some simulacrum of the glucose fructose mechanism of storing energy chemically. Yeah, we're related. Good job, Kent. You demonstrated an entirely new pathway for showing that we are all related. The chirality thing, right? All of our proteins are bent in a certain way, all identically. When they're bent differently, they don't work properly, even though it's exactly the same molecular structure, just rotated the other way. That's a question in biology. Why is that? But every single living thing on Earth has that trait, even though it's not strictly speaking necessary. Things could be the other way around. And if we didn't share a common ancestor, you would expect that half of the living things on Earth, my teeth are giving me trouble today. I mean, not the same way they used to, but my mouth is still healing and adapting, so, it happens. But if we didn't share a common designer, or a common ancestor rather, and we're simply designed, then all these incidental things that shouldn't actually matter should be a 50-50 distribution, don't you think? Unless Yahweh left-handed?
So I think it's a very complex symbiotic relationship that
Yeah,
God
but
designed.
you have a common, just like, do you think let's say, I don't know what kind of car company do you like? What kind of car do you think a Honda Accord is related to a Honda Civic?
I think the same guy's
And Victoria makes an excellent point. The banana is a bad example for the creationist. We come up against this with Ray Comfort from time to time. His old video, how the banana is proof of God because it's shaped perfectly for our hand and it peels so easily and it fits in our mouth and so on and so forth. But of course, the modern banana is because of human interference, controlled artificial selection, directed evolution. That's what agriculture is. It's one of our oldest and best technologies. And it gave us the wonderful banana we have today. It's literally evidence of directed evolution, or to put it more simply, evolution. And best of all, we know for sure no God was involved. So that's fun. Yes, the banana starts pointed at my mouth. It's a rotating banana. It's very slow, and it nom nom nom. Hey, I bet I could bite a banana now. That could be fun.
probably the same design team probably designs
Right.
it.
I'll do a photo set for Ember fans. Ember eats a banana.
So they're
Probably a lot of
related.
similarities.
They're related then.
No, that's you got to define the.
That's actually not a terrible idea. I mean, it is a terrible idea, but it's not a terrible idea because this nonsense was very expensive and I'm going to be paying it off for a long time. So if I can raise money with them, hell yeah.
Word related, like as in brother sister related, or
They have a common cause.
well, we're off topic a little bit now. You said you're an atheist.
I'm just curious. Do you think by related I mean common cause?
Oh yeah, a common cause was a bunch of people. A whole lot of people had to build those things. They didn't
Okay,
build
so
themselves.
you're related to a banana under that definition.
Well, that's where you get
Common cause. God is the common cause.
training in a gnat and swallowing a camel here.
Why, do you really think you're related to a banana?
You're the one that said that, not me. I said no.
Wait, but I'm using related to mean common cause.
Okay, you can use related however you want. I do not have a common ancestor.
But
with a
under
banana.
that definition of related, you'd be related to a banana,
I think I have a common designer with a banana.
which is a common cause, right?
I
A
don't think
designer would count as a
you're trying to
cause.
twist. You're trying to twist it now.
Oh, I'm twisting
You
related.
are definitely twisting it.
Not his precious religion. He's twisting the religion like a protein or a DNA helix, perhaps.
I don't think the banana and I have a common ancestor. I think we have a common designer. That's very different. Go ahead.
That would be an ancestor then. If you don't have a reproductive kind of preceding ancestor, then the one who designed you would be your ancestor. The one who gives life to you, your predecessor, from whence your origin arises, would be your ancestor. And if that ancestor did the same thing to give life to other organisms, you're related. You can't get around that, Kent.
But if we understand relatedness in terms of common causation, right? I think then under evolutionary biology, I'm related to a banana, and you would be related to a banana as well, in your view.
You're missing the point. You believe
What's
you
the
have
point?
you have a common ancestor with a banana in your
You
religion.
have a common designer with it,
See, that's very different. Very
but
different.
you're related to everything that he created.
Religion is a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe. Evolution
That's no. Which dictionary is that? I can't even see it. Let's blow it up and see. Thesaurus.com? Oh, of course. He's cutting off half of the definition in his own slide. Oh, what's the other half say? Usually involving devotional and ritual observances and often containing a moral code governing the conduct of human affairs. Now that sounds a bit more reasonable. That sounds a bit more like a religion. But because Kent is a fucking creationist, he has to not only cherry pick his sources, but selectively edit them. Oh, my banana's back. How did that happen? Get out of here. There's a trope among people looking at creationist sources where every time you see one, if you look them up and read the very next sentence, it will usually contradict the part that was taken out of its context. Because there's no honesty in creationism. They cannot help but lie. And I hate to broad brush people, but it's true for creationists. It is a common trait among all creationists. The only way to promote creationism, because I can't really believe anyone actually buys into this, you have to be dishonest. It's a requirement. It's a prerequisite. And Kent is so open about his dishonesty, he's displaying it on the screen for everyone to see. Holy shit. I made Kent mad.
is a religion. You believe in it.
I don't think
And that's the purpose of this channel.
Evolution doesn't explain the universe.
They sure do. The Big Bang Theory, how did the universe get here? That's part of evolution. Cosmic evolution, chemical evolution.
That's not what biologists mean by evolution.
Well, now you're starting way down the chain. That's why you have to define your terms. What I do in my seminar, and have to every time, I go through the 6 different stages of evolution. There's 6 levels to meanings to it. There is
6 meanings to evolution from the belief system that brought you polystrata fossils. We're going to learn about the 6 phases of evolution. And there's like 3 minutes left to go in this video. This should be good. But first, Fern says, again, words mean whatever we agree. Whatever we agree they mean. Yes, I can read, I promise. As someone with a PhD in religious studies, religion is a conceptual category which cannot be defined in any meaningful way. Okay, I can grab that it's a category. I mean, everything is. Everything is described in terms of categories and how it relates to other things. I think that might be an axiom. I'm kind of winging it here, but yeah, our words are arbitrary. Our definitions are arbitrary. There's no universality to the words we use. Humans speak different languages. What I call a toaster, someone else might call a floppendoodle. I don't expect they do, but they could. And since none of us speak every language on Earth, who knows? There's, and there's other languages that have multiple words for the same thing. Words are literally arbitrary. So, yeah. It is important to define your terms in a discussion so that you can be on the same page about the concept being discussed. But it is literally a fallacy to insist a thing must be its definition. So yeah, let's learn about evolution.
cosmic evolution. That's the origin of time, space, matter. There's chemical evolution, where the hydrogen produced all the elements like gold, silver, and platinum. There's
Wait. None of those are evolution. Okay, cosmic evolution. So we can colloquially say that the universe evolves over time, but that's because evolution is a term that we colloquially use to describe change over time. That doesn't mean the universe is actually evolving in the scientific or biological sense. Here's Kent with his definitions and shit, and he's immediately equivocating on what evolution even means. So that's fun. The origin of time, space, and matter. That's not what the Big Bang means, really. I mean, I don't want to go into a whole seminar about cosmogony, but the space and matter already existed. The time probably already existed. It's just the current instantiation of space-time changed direction. You could say the clock started running, but that's not the same as the origin of time, the creation of time. It's like when you buy a new alarm clock, right? At some point you plug it in, and then it starts counting. You didn't just create the clock. The clock was already there. You simply started it running.
Stellar evolution where the stars evolved. Nobody's ever seen that. There's organic evolution where life got started from.
I've never seen God create a kind, though. Is that
Oh, goodness. Yeah, right. There's more. There's more. Chemical evolution. The origin of higher elements from hydrogen. Well, no, that's not how that works. It's that hydrogens don't love each other very much and give each other a special hug that produces a new baby element, which could be a different kind of element, perhaps, which, interestingly enough, would be evolution if that happened. But that's not how that works. Now, when we have radioactive decay, we do call the leftovers, the products of the decay, daughter isotopes, but there's not literal biological childbirth involved. I shouldn't have to explain this. The first elements to form after the Big Bang were hydrogen and helium, but that's not super important. We do understand through stellar nucleosynthesis, through supernovas. What did Dr. Tapioca Weasel call them? Kilonovas, when neutron stars collide and things. It's pretty well understood at this point. A lot of people have done a lot of math for a lot of time. Yeah, but it's not evolution, not even a little bit. Michael Beverly is here. Hello, hello. How confident are we that evolution touched Kent's brain? I mean, seriously, he's off the charts disingenuous. It's hard to listen to him. It can be, yeah. I mean, mostly we laugh at him, but a lot of people have been talking about this run-in with Danny, and so I wanted to look at this and see how it went, and so far it's proving to be very entertaining and enlightening. Kent has already demonstrated 2 new ways in which he is completely fucking wrong, which is kind of fun. Stellar and planetary evolution tied to chemical evolution. Now, often when people say chemical evolution, they're talking about prebiotic evolution, origin of life stuff, abiogenesis, if you will. So it's weird for Kent to talk about it that way. Stellar and planetary evolution. Stars also do not hook up and exchange genetic material and produce offspring. The planets are not baby suns. They're not going to grow up to be stars one day. That's not how anything works. So that's just wild. Yes, they change over time, but that's not the same. Holy crap. Organic evolution, the origin of life. So that, abiogenesis. And that's another one. There is a bit of actual evolution involved in there. You can conceivably have prebiotic evolution, because to go back to definitions for a minute, we decide what things are. We put the arbitrary lines to define a thing into one category or another. And that's what we've done with life. Every time we talk about abiogenesis, what we're really talking about is cellular life, because life, by definition, is cellular. If we're not so anal about the definition, it's not that much of a stretch to conceptualize. A thing can be alive and carrying out all the processes of life without being cellular. Like the ancestor of the first true cell would be pretty damn close to cellular. It would probably be a pocket with cytoplasm and DNA and possibly even some organelles, but it's just not quite the full definition of a cell. And it can do evolution because it's carrying out metabolic processes, it's eating, it's reproducing, it's doing all the things life does. It's just not quite a true cell. Step that back a few more steps. Maybe it's not even close to a cell, but it's doing all the same things the protocell did. So you could say that it is a living process. I mean, when you break it down fundamentally, biology, all biology is just chemical reactions. And chemical reactions don't care if they're alive or not. They're just chemicals carrying out their instructions, their programming, if you want to go about it that way. It's, yeah. And then also macroevolution. He's not even microevolution. First of all, to separate the two, he's conceding that evolution happens. He's just saying it's only micro. He wants to talk about macroevolution. That's another term that only creationists use, or we use when we're talking about our two creationists. It's the same thing. It's the one step at a time, you can get to the end of the street kind of thing. Kent is saying that's never happened. You have to be created at the end of the street because you can't possibly walk there. It's that silly. But also changing from one kind of animal into another. Well, again, we're drawing the parameters on what counts as a kind, on what counts as a species even. Like, if you want to say all dogs are dogs, that's true, but there's a big difference between a Chihuahua and a Great Dane. Evolution has created many different pathways, even though they're all categorized as dogs. That's our category. We've said close enough. These are all effectively the same animal, despite their huge differences. But then there's other animals that are very, very similar morphologically, but are different in other ways. So we'd say they're different critters. Darwin's finches, for example. Every one of those, the big beaked finch, the little beaked finch, the medium beaked finch, and all the other they're all separate species. Some of them can even interbreed. There's a bit of a crisis on the Galapagos right now with one of the varieties of finches is susceptible to a certain kind of parasite. Worms get up in the nest and cause nastiness. And so they've been breeding with a different kind of finch to create hybrids that are more resistant to this parasite. Evolution in action. They're creating a whole different kind of bird to deal with this environmental pressure.
A problem.
That's why I admit mine's a religion, and you're not admitting yours is a religion.
Well, what's your definition of religion again?
You must be related to Bill Clinton. What's the definition of is? Okay, you want to fight every definition. Okay, macroevolution.
You said yourself you have to be careful how you define the terms.
I agree. That's why I define the
looks like we're both Bill Clintons here.
Well, that's why I say there's 6 different meanings to the word evolution. I've done this thousands of times.
You're super.
Well, he's done it at least 300 sometimes because he actually counts the number of debates he loses. I mean, he participates in. Because he, of course, would not concede the point that he's lost all of them. But he cannot show us a single one that he has definitely won. So, details. It's just wild. I mean, I get why Danny's leaning into the we have to be pedantic about our terms thing. This is one of the things I dislike about philosophy because people get so hung up in the pedantry when we really should be discussing concepts rather than splitting hairs over what a specific word means. Because if we disagree on the specifics of the word, let's use a different fucking word so we can just carry on with the conversation. You know?
For Bill Clinton.
The first 5 definitions of the word evolution are religious. Nobody's ever seen any of these. Number 6, variations within the kind. Like
Michael says, viruses aren't alive. They don't metabolize or reproduce themselves, and there's other reasons. So it's sort of like a halfway point. Viruses are fascinating because they do have genetic material, usually RNA, and they have a coat that's similar to, but definitely not the same as a cell membrane. And often that's it, but not always. Some of them appear to potentially be prebiotic, semi-life, pseudo-life. They can remain dormant for ages because they don't metabolize on their own. They're just, well, the reason we call computer viruses that is because they're just a line of programming that carries out its executable function, and that's it. But we have found viruses that definitely used to be full organisms, full cells with mitochondria and riboplasts and all the bells and whistles. And as they became more and more genetically parasitic, they lost some of those features and some of those functions, but not all of them. There's still leftover bits that show they used to be cellular life. So, given that because of our definition of what life is, viruses are not technically living things, how did a thing that was once a cellular organism, definitely alive, manage to evolve into not being alive? That it kind of shows the absurdity in where we've put that definitional line. Now, I understand it's important to have a line because that's how we know what we're talking about when we talk with each other. But to say that a living thing evolved into a thing that exists and under the right circumstances is capable of reproducing, but it isn't alive. A living thing evolved into non-life. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And it makes even less sense from Kent's point of view, where everything was created in its current state. Why the fuck would a virus have that vestigial equipment of being cellular if it was created the way it is? It kind of goes to all the other weird anomalies. Like, Kent, who wears glasses, contends that we were all created perfect. Why he's affronting his god by augmenting his vision artificially, who the fuck knows? But humans famously have some issues. The laryngeal nerve, I believe it is, goes all the way down, wraps around the aorta, and comes back up. That's a very silly design. It doesn't make a lot of sense, except in the light of evolution, because there was no selection pressure to not do that. It wasn't a benefit one way or the other. But it gets even weirder when you consider that giraffes have to do the same thing. Their laryngeal nerve goes all the way down that giant neck, around the aorta, and then a good chunk of the way back up to reach the larynx. It's not just stupid, it's counterproductive at that point. And that's just one example. Another one of my favorites, also going to eyeballs. Humans don't have the best eyes. We have a big old blind spot where the optic nerve meets the retina. That's not optimal. That's not a survival advantage. That's a problem if you're going to contend that humans were perfectly designed. Other animals have better eyeballs than we do. Eagles have better visual acuity. Mantis shrimp see a wider array of colors. Their fucking squids don't have the blind spot we have. Every single thing about humans, individually, the characteristics are either met or exceeded by every other species, or rather, there is another species who can do everything we can do better. Parrots can talk. They can articulate the same kind of language we do. Other apes can communicate, use sign language and other things. But there is no thing we do that no other species does. We just happen to have a suite of things all together, and we've leaned in hard to our one evolutionary advantage. Curiosity, figuring shit out, technology. We no longer adapt to our environment in the same way as other living things. We adapt the environment to us. Behold, here I am in an artificial cave because at some point one of my ancestors said, you know what? Living in a cave is pretty cool, but I want to go live over there and still live in a cave. So I'm going to build a cave over there. Artificial caves. It's magic. It's proof of design anyway. So that's pretty fun.
Wait, how did you
300
define
kinds of code.
religion? How did you define religion again?
It's something you believe in by faith, but you have no evidence for.
Oh,
You believe by faith you're related to a banana. Do you have
okay.
evidence for that?
Yeah, I don't really study what evolutionary biologists say. I take it upon their authority because I'm not a science guy, I'm more of a philosophy guy. But I'm fine with saying they're wrong for sake of argument. I just don't see how that's an undercutter for atheism.
And that's an excellent point. Kent always wants to argue evolution. And Danny can just be like, you know what? Let's say it's wrong. Cool. What's the problem with atheism, though? Because that's not the same subject. They're different things, my guy. And that's a weird thing. Not all creationists do this. But Kent does it. His son Eric does it. The whole AIG crew does it. The Center for Creation Research does it. It's shockingly common to say that because their religion, they like to pretend, has answers for everything, to not believe their religion, you must also have answers for everything, which means you have to believe something about the origin of life. You have to have a mythology about the origin of the universe. And if you don't, if you ever say, I don't know, then you're wrong and they win by default. And this is a tactic, and I've been trying to bring this up every chance I get because it's important we all understand. It is a tactic. It is a distraction, because as long as they're talking about what you believe, as long as they're talking about whether evolution is valid or even atheism itself, we're not talking about what they believe and the entailments and implications that come along with it. Like the fact that gay marriage should be banned and homosexuals should be stoned to death. Like the fact that women should be property and have no right to their own lives. To say nothing of people like me. Holy crap. They don't want to talk about that. They want to pretend they know all the truths, so people send them all the money. But they never want to talk about what they so passionately claim to believe in. No, they want to focus on what you believe. They want to fight about science, so we're not fighting about the Bible. Never forget it. Thessalante says, just like the selfish gene theory, selfish chemicals can explain the propagation of organic compounds life needed to develop. I'm not sure about that. First of all, I'm not convinced about the selfish gene concept. As you know, I'm not a big fan of Richard Dawkins. I do like memes though, so I'll give him credit there. But I don't know that chemicals can be said to be selfish in any meaningful way. Like, I realize we're not speaking with great precision in this context. We're not saying that a chemical has a desire, but I mean, I've done enough chemistry, I've done enough biochem even, to borrow a line from Andy Weir. Chemistry is a sloppy bitch. You take a bunch of hydrogen, you expose it to a bunch of oxygen, and you light a spark. Much of the hydrogen and oxygen will combine to form water, but not all of it. And if chemicals were selfish, even in the non-desirous way, it was just their nature or something, I don't think that would be the case. I think every hydrogen would try to bond with an oxygen as hard as it can. So we don't have the terminology to discuss this in this way under the lens of any kind of desire. But I think you get what I mean here. That it's just, it doesn't actually hold up when you look into it, you know?
Okay. Would you agree that we are here? The world is here. It's real.
There is an external world. It's real.
Okay. Would you agree that so far there's only been two options offered? Somebody made it or nobody made it. It made itself. Is there a third option I'm missing here?
I see the two options. You added a third one, but the two options either was created by someone or it wasn't.
Right. Okay.
So I take the second option.
You believe it wasn't created by someone. So how did it get here? Do we ever see anything create itself? What have we?
Well, we do actually, but that's not really here nor there. There is a vast difference between not created by a thinking person with will, desire, and the capacity to design, and creating itself, or even created by nothing. Those aren't the same thing. Natural processes create things all the time, like we were talking about earlier with snowflakes, volcanoes. There's nobody pushing a button to activate the magma chamber of a volcano. It's just natural processes. It's just actions and reactions. It's just physics. You don't need a person to stand there and manually pull levers and turn dials and so forth.
What do you mean by create itself? You mean like random? Like is randomly popped up?
No, has anybody ever
create
seen
itself?
Every cause has a causer.
I
Something
don't
has to cause it. You don't believe that? The Bible says in Colossians chapter 2 that you should be careful.
Yeah, every cause needs a causer. The wind needs a winder. The snowflakes need a snowflaker. Obviously. It's so obvious. Just look at the world around you. Look at the trees. And look for the tree-er. They don't spring from seeds. They're not brought about by normal reproduction like every other fucking organism on this planet. There's some spirit running around, touching its finger down and causing a tree to grow. And it's just coincidental that it happens to be where seeds are. You know, it's neat that way. Mad Computer Scientist sends a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. And says, best case runtime complexity for the trolley problem is O(n). The most useful I've ever found philosophy. Best case is O(1). I'm sure that's a programmer joke. But it's whoop, there it goes. Bye-bye. You lost me on that one, but you know.
About being spoiled by philosophy. I think that happened to you. Read Colossians chapter 2. I'll put your name in there.
Oh, I think I was muted. No, but then what caused God's intention to create rather than not to create?
Oh, he's outside of the cause. He's eternal.
So nothing caused it. Nothing. You're in my playing field now. You believe there's something occurred without a cause.
Danny, that's
yeah. Stuff's happening without a personal cause anyway. And wouldn't that be interesting if a God did exist and it created itself? Because that would be a thing that created itself, demonstrating that it's possible. Oh my, oh my. Sasalante says, I think the viruses that had been cellular life didn't evolve. Not how we mean that, but that something in the machinery broke but kept working, sort of. Well, that still would be evolution. That would be a change in the allele frequencies in the population over time. Even if it's a catastrophic shift, like we do see in some circumstances, where a chromosome breaks, like in Homo sapiens, for example. The gene to synthesize our own internal vitamin C, it broke. It didn't affect our ancestors because they had access to fruits and such. That's why it wasn't selected against. But sometimes shit does break. That's still evolution. That's still a mutation. It's not like the mutations that do crop up are intentional, you know? It's always something breaks. It's just sometimes it provides a benefit. And when it does, when it does, shit gets real. The Cambrian explosion! Because shit was breaking left and right. It was a pretty cool time. It was a long time. I often wonder, I look at the pictures of the Cambrian explosion, and I see all these little squids and crabs and other things, and I wonder how they tasted. I can't help it. I love seafood, and they all look like they're delicious. I'm sure it's just the artists, but yeah.
long enough. You take your philosophy somewhere else or start your own channel. But okay, David, yes, sir.
Oh, and there it is. He just kicks him. Let's watch that again, because that happened pretty fast.
You're in my playing field now. You believe there's something occurred without a cause.
Danny, that's long enough. You take your philosophy somewhere else or start your own channel. But okay, David.
Okay, he just says, points out that Kent is in the same position he is. Boop, off he goes. Did he go too far off script? Did he deviate too far from the mean? Because Kent is always on the same script, and he always has been. It's wild. It's interesting to see Danny make Kent rage quit, reverse rage quit, rage kick, One of those things. But it didn't seem that provocative. All I can figure is that it's so far outside of Kent's wheelhouse that he knew he was losing, which is it's a rare thing for Kent to admit he lost. Again, to go back to that old debate review that Mark and I did, that was a time that Amy Newman and James W. and Andrew Coming and AJ, I think, and a couple others. Forgive me if you were there and I missed you. But they all went at Kent at the same time. And because they were working together, instead of trying to talk over each other, as unfortunately happens so frequently in large panel discussions, they were able to pin him down point by point and make him admit that he was wrong on every single point of his script, until finally at the very end, when they nailed down the last hammer in that creationist coffin, and we're trying to make Kent cry pinochle and admit that his entire thing is bullshit and he knows it. His brain glitched and he reset right back to the start of the conversation, and everything he'd admitted was wrong. He took it all back. And he said, well, the Bible is true because the Bible says the Bible is true. He just rewound it right to the beginning. And it was wild to see that happen, because he was absolutely cornered. But instead of quitting, instead of making the moderator kick everybody out, as happened here, granted, this was a one-on-one, but still, he just flipped back to the beginning. He just went back to page 1 of the script. And never mind the fact he'd made all those concessions along the way. It's something. It's definitely something. All right, let's get rid of that. I'll check in with the chat again here. Thassalante says, stream comments are too tiny. I meant selfish in the sense that chemicals that replicate the best win. I don't know if that's necessarily true either. I'd have to ponder that some. Let's see, what do we got here? It's observably false. I'm not sure which thing is observably false, but seeds do need a seeder. It's true, Johnny. Leo says group theory. I should pay more attention. The ON is an orthogonal group of dimension n. So Leo is hugely into math, because Leo understands the equations of general relativity better than anybody I've ever met. That also is way the fuck over my head. It's fun though. One of these days, I'm gonna have to study up on that stuff, because I like to know what people are talking about. It's pretty nice. Purple says, just got an idea. If you travel, print out some adult content warning stickers and put them on the Bibles in every hotel you stay in. I mean, true? Accurate? My goodness. Remember when they were really gung-ho about the book bans? They're still doing book bans. It's out of freaking control. But depending on how they worded the policies, there was one county in Utah that they wound up taking the Bible out of schools for explicit adult content. And the conservatives lost their minds. It was hilarious. And Aaron did have a fascinating debate series with Kent. It was pretty trippy, it's true. There's a reason why Kent only wants to go to Sitting to Lies channel. And accurate. Because I don't think I've ever seen Donnie not sitting. Donnie Deals, a literal used car salesman, is peddling creationism over on his pet channel with he has more than Kent now. He has a bunch of other creationist liars over there, but yeah, he lies. He lies openly and blatantly, the same way Kent does, the same way other creationists do. But he's always sitting. So yeah, that might be a good way to characterize that. All right. Well, still no sign of Grayson. If anybody sees him, do let him know that our our thoughts and bears are with him. But I do hope he's okay. Again, I know there's a ton of weather events going on in the South, and it could just be he lost power, or he's traveling somewhere where conditions are bad, or I don't know. I did hear from him just yesterday. He was talking in one of the Discord group chats. Incidentally, while I no longer have a Discord, there is a link to the Transpositions Discord in the description below if you want to, engage with the community and have the memes and things. The Transpositions Discord is a pretty good place for that. As far as I know, as of yesterday, Grayson was alive. So, yeah, Grayson has been online this weekend. Yeah, like I said, there was a message from him yesterday in a group chat. I just haven't heard from him today. It's worrying when people just vanish, We've all noticed people disappear for a little while. Sometimes it's medical difficulties, sometimes it's weather difficulties, but it makes us worry. So I hope he's okay. Sinister says, runtime complexity is just about how long it takes for a computer to run an algorithm. O1 is a constant time. ON is linear time. Okay. I think I follow. O1 would be 12 p.m. That's it. Whereas ON is the whole string of time. Yeah. John, he may have taken a wrong turn in Albuquerque. Grayson is often out and about on adventures. In fact, I was going to ask him about a couple. In the introduction I had written for him, I mentioned that he's gone on a dino hunting expedition with Doc Dino. He's been face to face with Kent Hovind. He's, he isn't just about the science. He does the adventures too. And I respect the hell out of that. As a person who loves to travel and who believes in going out into the field and doing things for real for yourself, it's really, really commendable. And I was hoping to ask him about some of his adventures. But on the flip side, he's also a really resourceful, intelligent, durable person. So hopefully, if there is trouble, it's something he was able to handle. And he's just not internet capable at the moment. So, yeah. It's not great, but I think yes, durable. I'm pretty sure he can handle himself. We've seen him full body in some of the expedition videos he's done. And yeah, I think he can handle himself. I don't know. It's possible he did just forget, but like I said, I heard from him yesterday. I tried to check in again with him this morning. He still hasn't answered that message. He hasn't posted anywhere else I can see. He could have forgotten and just not be online. That's a possibility. I don't think so, but it could be. Who's to say? Well, we've got a few more minutes before Maya's show, and while I'd be happy wrapping up here, I do want to redirect the show over to Maya's, because if you haven't seen Bad Science Sunday, it is one of the best things on YouTube. Maya and Dr. Tapioca Weasel, a fake physicist who is actually 5 weasels in a human suit, together with a guest who this week is Chris Mallard from the Daily Atheist Morning Show. They go through bad science, conspiracies, pseudoscience. I think tonight is an Atlantis legend kind of thing, based purely on the thumbnail, but I don't actually know for sure. Where did I put it? I had a window that had Maya open in it, but I've got so many windows open because I always keep Maya on screen so that I can see when Maya is actually live. No worries. I will just open a new window. It's fine. Yet another tab. Okay, let's see here. I'll bring it up so y'all can see what's going on. Shit, I just switched away from the tab. Where'd I put that tab? My goodness. Okay, here we go. Yep. Here's tonight's. And because Maya doesn't have a trailer, we can see the thumbnail. So Daily Atlantis morning show. Yeah, so there's Chris in the middle between Maya and Dr. Tapioca Weasel. I don't know who these fellas are. This one looks sort of like Philip, what's his name? Philip Zebka? Zika? Something like that. Milo from Mini Minuteman just did a third debunk on that dude. I'm Google debunkers. I love it. I love it so much. It's so fun. But yeah, conspiracy guys, they're going to talk about Atlantis stuff, and it should be pretty fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Although I do have to go to bed myself, because on account of having to get up early for work, because yay, capitalism. But I do put Maya's show on and listen while I pass out, and then I come back and rewatch the show after I get up in the morning. And yeah, it's a fun time. Let's see. What else have we got going on? Robin says, "You look awesome, Ember." Thank you so much. I'm still in the same. Well, I did change my dress from when I was on Michael's show, because the first one, I love that dress. It's fancy. It's fabulous. It makes me feel kind of like lithe, like an elf. You know, it's really neat. But it's slightly uncomfortable when I'm sitting in a chair. It kind of pulls on my neck, and there's a lot of material that I'm sitting on, and it's yeah. So I just changed to my other blue dress. Well, my first blue dress, the very first one I got from a thrift store because it fit and had pockets. And even though it doesn't fit me quite right anymore because I've shrunken so much, I still enjoy it because it has pockets, and it was a great deal because it was from a thrift store. And I mean, you know, it's the first one. So, yeah. But it is a bit more comfortable when I'm at this chair. I do still need a lot of clothes. I really don't have many clothes. But the fact that I have multiple blue dresses pleases the hell out of me. I need more hats to go with it. I do have this hat, which works well with like denim stuff, like jeans, mini skirts. I have a denim jacket. But the problem is that it because it's like so much like a trucker cap, I can only I wear it around the house, but I feel like it's a little too mask coated, at least for where I am. Later on, when I'm in a better place morphologically, it won't be as much of an issue. But you know, Vesta says your hat reminds me of something that Johnny Carson would wear while channeling Karnak the Magnificent. I'm gonna do some fortune telling, folks. I predict that Kent Hovind will never produce proof of his god. It's a prophecy. Hell yeah. Purple says, you have so much to learn about women's fashions. You can't look good and be comfortable at the same time. I beg to differ. I have these cute fucking boots. They're way the fuck over there, so I can't get them right now. But they're high heels, they have pointy toes, and they're the most fucking comfortable thing. Now, granted, I've been wearing work boots, and before that, military boots, and like I haven't even owned a pair of sneakers for over a decade. But even so, these high-heeled boots, they're more comfortable. Now I have sneakers. I have two different kinds. I have Converse-looking ones and I have Nike-looking ones. They're both off-brand because I'm very, very poor. But the high-heeled boots are more comfortable. It's Sinister says no, purple is correct. Y'all are just buying weird shit. On the other hand, it could well be that it can't look good and be comfortable. The fact that it's comfortable means that I am wrong about the fact that it looks good. But you know what? I'm going to go with what I like and is also comfortable when possible. So, you know. Yeah, ew. Ew. That's right. I'm one of those gross, disgusting women people. That's why I wear makeup, you know, because My normal non-makeuped face is not fit for broadcast. It's true. Oh goodness. Purple says, when I started transitioning, I quickly developed an obsession with knee-high boots, but it has been difficult to find ones that fit over my thick calves. I don't know. I take your word for it. I don't doubt you, but I haven't actually done anything with knee-high boots, so I have no idea what sizes and availabilities and so forth. I can imagine, though, because it's difficult enough to find footwear that fits, considering our feet have 3 dimensions to them, not just one, so having a single size doesn't really work very well. When you add the fact that your leg has to fit too, now you're adding another thing that could be sized correctly or not correctly. And, yeah. Salante says, the lack of functional pockets is creeping into menswear. Not size, but stuff keeps falling out of them. Pockets that stuff keeps falling out of. That seems counterproductive. I mean, you can fit stuff in them, so there's that. But that's one of the things I like about dress pockets. Jean pockets, you can't even fit half of a cell phone into. But dress pockets, I can put my whole cell phone in there, and usually some other stuff too. There's not all that much other stuff I usually carry around, but I could like, I don't have a proper wallet. I have like a metal case that I keep my cards and things in, my ID, my health insurance card, so forth, and that fits in my pocket too. So yeah, that's a thing. Robin says high heels, laying down shoes. That's kind of valid because I know a couple boudoir photographers. I used to do boudoir photography myself, actually. For a solid year when I was a pro photographer. Well, not a solid year. It was January through October. For some reason in October, the business just dropped right the fuck off and it never picked back up again. But it was by far the most requested category. And the point is, it seems like every boudoir photographer wants high-heeled shoes. Like, even if you're going to do barefoot shots, bring high-heeled shoes anyway. I don't really understand why or the obsession. I get that when you're wearing high heels, you can feel more confident. You're a little bit taller, so that can go into feeling more confident too. But I don't know. I think sneakers are cuter. I mean, of course, it depends on color and how it works with your body style and your general style, your fashion, all those things. But just in general terms, I know I'm probably a heretic. Herbal says I avoid high heels because I don't need to be 6 feet tall. That's relatable. After the Comic-Con I run every summer, there's a crew party for all the volunteers and whatnot. And I wore those boots to the party, and I was towering over everyone except this one fella named Bill, of Willie's Paint and Print. I can say his name because he's publicly on the committee that runs the decision making of the convention, the organizing committee. And he's a very tall man. But I was just towering over everyone else. I'm like, yes. An already outrageously tall woman wearing heels. This was a great plan. Like there were parts of we did it's sort of like an event hall, but it's a mixed use event hall, so that the room we in had a basketball hoop that lowered down, but it wasn't actually a gym. It was weird. But there were parts of that area where the ceiling was so low that it was like brushing the top of my hat. I'm like, oh no. Yeah. Sinister says, I sprained my ankles on my own plenty of times without help. Most of the times it's minor. High heels resulted in major swelling. That's fair. I was really worried about high heels when I first got my hands on them because, everybody talks about how difficult they are to walk in. I had no problem. I took to them immediately, like a fish to water. But The flip side to that is when I was little, my mother worked nights and so slept during the day. And so we children had to be very, very quiet, which means I walked on tiptoe for most of my childhood, all the time. Heels is effectively walking on tiptoe, but there's a support for your heel. It's small, but it's there, so it's actually easier. The tricky part for me was walking on grass, because the heel, if it's too narrow, it just like punches into the soil, and you're like, oh shit. And so you have to like make allowances for it, and I keep forgetting, and it's tricky. Aunt Jur says attractiveness in heels has something to do with how it changes the position of your hips and your posture. Okay, I can see that. Because by angling the leg, it shifts where the hip sits, which shifts where the spine sits, and so on and so forth. I get it, yeah. Purple says, toe walking as a child is a classic early autism thing. That's possible. I mean, again, we had to, because if we woke my mother up, it was a bad day. But I can't rule out the possibility I would have done it anyway. I mean, not nearly as much, of course. We also had a gravel driveway. And because, I don't know if it was because I read The Hobbit at a young age, or because I just refused to concede to social demands. Go figure. I refused to wear shoes walking down the driveway. Every chance I got, I went down barefoot. And the stones were very sharp. So sometimes I would walk tiptoe to prevent the soft part of my arch from getting poked by the sharp stones. Booba Sweat says it makes your butt look better. I can't rule that out either. I don't know. I'm still working on making my butt look better. I mean, I do feel good about how I look and where I am, but I'm not where I want to be. And part of it is because when you lose a whole bunch of weight, you end up with a lot of extra skin because you're no longer as large and the skin is still there. I still haven't figured out an elegant solution to that, but I am continuing to shrink, and I'm building up more and more extra skin. I'm gonna need to figure out something pretty soon because it's getting to the point. There's an old Simpsons episode where Homer loses a bunch of weight, and he ends up like pulling it all behind him and tying it with a rubber band. It's not quite that bad, but there's it's in the way. It's in the way. Yeah. Sinister says, any day my mother woke us up was bad because her favorite method of waking us up was to sing the horrible country music at the top of her lungs. Oh no. Although when I was a child, country music wasn't nearly as bad. It wasn't nearly as sad at the very least. Like we had Chris LeDoux and Kenny Rogers. Yeah, Kenny Rogers had some sad songs, but like Howard of the County, that was actually pretty horrible looking back, but the melody was kind of cool. Gambler, of course, is a classic. But yeah, there were some pretty good country tunes back in the day. Where the fuck did I put my Maya tab? Because Maya could go live any bloody second. But I do appreciate all of you folks for coming by, for hanging out, even though Grayson is off doing Grayson things elsewhere. I think we had a pretty good time with it debate review, and I appreciate you humoring me and helping me vamp for time until Maya goes live. So yeah. It's good to hang out with you folks. It's good to have community, because ultimately that's why a lot of us do what we do. That's why I do what I do. Why I shout out other channels every possibility. Why I redirect to other channels whenever I get the chance. Why I'm doing another Skeptic Space video to introduce people to channels that they might not have heard of because I didn't hear of them. And all the other things that I do, you know, the transpositions, Book of Ember, the new project, Transparency Talk. I finally got the first interview edited, and that'll be going up on Wednesday. The links to all my stuff, because it's too much to rattle off anymore. So just go to betterthanember.com. It's all on there. But yeah, the new show, Transparency Talk, will be coming next Wednesday. That's to help the community. That's to build community and inspire and bring people hope. Because, like I discussed with Michael earlier, it's about the utility of the thing. It's about making lives better. I think that's what we all do on some level or another. Well, I see people departing, so I have to assume Maya is live now. So and there's Aunt Jer to confirm. So hooray. Once again, thank you all so much for joining. If you're watching later, please do hit the subscribe button. It helps a lot. It makes me feel better about life. And have yourselves a wonderful evening. And as always, remember, you don't have to rage kick philosophers out of your room because you're wrong, because you are better than religion. Good night.